What happens when Hollywood royalty sits down for what should be a fun, light-hearted interview, only to be blindsided by a host who forgets who the real star is? In just 40 seconds, a legendary actor goes from smiling guest to walking off stage, leaving behind a host whose ego just cost her show one of the biggest moments in daytime television history. This is the story of how Jennifer Hudson turned what could have been an iconic interview into a career-defining disaster. Jamie Foxx walked onto that stage with nothing but good energy. The man is a legend, Oscar winner, Grammy winner, comedy icon. He has done it all, and when he agreed to sit down with Jennifer Hudson, everyone thought it was going to be magic. Two incredibly talented people, both from humble beginnings. Both reached the top of their game. This was supposed to be a celebration, but from the moment Jamie sat down, something felt off. Jennifer started the interview the way she always does, talking about herself. Now, look, every host has their style. Some hosts make it about the guest. Some hosts make it about themselves. But there is a difference between setting the stage and stealing the spotlight, and Jennifer was doing the latter. She spent the first few minutes of the interview talking about her own career, her own struggles, her own achievements. Jamie sat there smiling, nodding, being gracious, because that is what you do when you are a professional. You let the host do their thing, you play along, you wait your turn. But your turn never really came for Jamie. When Jennifer finally got around to asking Jamie a question, it was not really a question. It was more like a statement with a question mark at the end. She said, "So Jamie, you have been in the business for a long time. I remember when I was starting out, people would compare us because we both sing and act. Do you remember that?" Jamie kind of laughed it off. He said, "Yeah, I mean, you are incredibly talented. We have both been blessed." But Jennifer was not done. She kept going. She said, "I just think it is interesting how some people can do both, like really do both at a high level. Not everyone can do that." The audience was quiet. You could feel the tension starting to build, because what Jennifer was really saying without saying it directly was that she thought she was on the same level as Jamie, or maybe even above him. And look, Jennifer Hudson is talented. Nobody is taking that away from her. But Jamie Foxx is on a different level. He has an Oscar for Best Actor. He has had #1 movies. He has sold out comedy tours. He has hit songs. The man is a living legend. And here was Jennifer subtly trying to put herself in the same category, or even above him. Jamie handled it with class. He said, "I think we all just try to do our best. Every day is a blessing." But Jennifer kept pushing. She started talking about her Oscar. She said, "When I won my Oscar for Dreamgirls, I remember thinking, this is just the beginning. Because I knew I had so much more to give, and I have. I have done Broadway. I have had hit albums. I have this show now." Jamie nodded. He was still being polite, but you could see it in his eyes. He was wondering where this was going. Why was she making this interview about herself? Then Jennifer said something that really crossed the line. She looked at Jamie and said, "Jamie, I have always wondered something. Do you ever feel like you peaked too early?" The audience gasped. You could hear it. A collective intake of breath. Because that is not a question you ask someone. That is an insult disguised as a question. James' smile faded just for a second. Then he put it back on because again he is a professional. He said, "What do you mean by that?" Jennifer doubled down. She said, "Well, you won your Oscar in 2004. That was over 20 years ago, and since then you have done movies, but nothing really at that level. Do you ever feel like you are chasing that high again?" Now let me break this down for you. Jamie Foxx won his Oscar for Ray in 2004, and since then, he has been in Django Unchained, he has been in Baby Driver, he has been in Just Mercy, he has been in Soul, the Pixar movie, he has had a production company, he has had successful comedy specials. The man has not stopped working, and more importantly, he has not stopped being excellent. But Jennifer was sitting there on her own show, suggesting that Jamie's best days were behind him, that he was some kind of has-been. Jamie took a breath. You could see him weighing his options. He could fire back. He could put Jennifer in her place right there on national television. But instead, he tried to steer the conversation back to something positive. He said, "I think every artist is always growing, always evolving. I do not look at my career as peaking. I look at it as a journey." That should have been the end of it. Jennifer should have taken the hint, should have moved on to a different topic, should have let Jamie talk about his current projects, but she did not. She said, "But do you ever look at someone like me, someone who is still on the rise, still achieving new things, and feel a little bit of envy?" The audience was silent, completely silent, because this was no longer an interview. This was Jennifer Hudson using her platform to try to diminish one of the most respected figures in entertainment. Jamie looked at her for a long moment. Then he said very calmly, "Jennifer, I am happy for anyone who is doing well. I do not operate from a place of envy. I operate from a place of love and gratitude." But Jennifer was not listening. She was on a roll. She said, "I just think it is important to stay relevant, to keep pushing, to not rest on your laurels. That is what I do every single day." And that is when Jamie had enough. He leaned back in his chair. He looked at Jennifer and he said, "You know what, Jennifer? I came here today to have a conversation, to talk about my work, to talk about my life, to connect with your audience. But it seems like you are more interested in talking about yourself. And that is fine. That is your show. But I do not need to be here for that." The audience was frozen. Jennifer's face went pale. She tried to laugh it off. She said, "Oh, Jamie, come on. I am just trying to have a real conversation." Jamie stood up. He said, "A real conversation is when two people talk to each other with respect. This is not that." Jennifer tried to backtrack. She said, "I did not mean any disrespect. I was just asking questions." James started taking off his microphone. He said, "Questions are fine, but those were not questions. Those were you trying to make yourself look bigger by making me look smaller, and I'm not going to sit here and be part of that." The producers were scrambling. You could see people rushing around off camera. Jennifer was panicking. She said, "Jamie, please let us just start over. Let us talk about your new project." But Jamie was done. He said, "I wish you all the best, Jennifer. I really do. But I am going to leave now." He walked off the stage just like that. One of the biggest stars in Hollywood walking off a talk show in the middle of an interview. The audience did not know what to do. Some people clapped nervously. Others just sat there in shock. Jennifer tried to salvage it. She turned to the camera and said, "Well, I guess Jamie had somewhere to be. We will be right back after this break." But everyone watching knew what really happened. This was not about Jamie having somewhere to be. This was about a host who let her ego get in the way of doing her job, who turned what should have been a celebration of a legendary career into a platform for her own insecurities. Let us talk about what Jennifer did wrong here, because this is a master class in how not to conduct an interview. First, she made the interview about herself. When you are the host, your job is to make your guests look good, to ask questions that let them shine, to create an environment where they feel comfortable sharing their story. Jennifer did the opposite. She spent more time talking about her own achievements than asking Jamie about his. Second, she was competitive when she should have been collaborative. There is no competition here. Jamie and Jennifer are not rivals. They are both talented artists who have succeeded in their own ways. But Jennifer seemed to need to prove that she was just as good as Jamie or better, and that insecurity came through in every question she asked. Third, she was disrespectful. You do not ask someone if they feel like they peaked. You do not suggest that their best work is behind them. You do not imply that you are more relevant than they are. That is not journalism. That is not entertainment. That is just rude. And fourth, she did not listen. James gave her multiple opportunities to change course. He tried to steer the conversation back to something positive, but Jennifer was so focused on her own agenda that she could not hear what he was saying. And that is when he decided to leave. Now, some people might say Jamie overreacted, that he should have just played along, that it is part of the job to deal with difficult interviewers. But here is the thing. Jamie Foxx has been in this business for decades. He has done thousands of interviews. He knows how to handle tough questions. He knows how to deal with hosts who have big personalities. But there is a difference between a challenging interview and a disrespectful one. And what Jennifer did crossed that line. James did not yell. He did not make a scene. He did not insult Jennifer. He simply said, "I am not going to be part of this," and he left. That is not overreacting. That is setting a boundary. That is standing up for yourself. And honestly, more people should do it. Because the culture of celebrity interviews has become so toxic. Hosts think they can say whatever they want. They think they can embarrass their guests or put them on the spot or make them uncomfortable, all in the name of entertainment. And guests are expected to just sit there and take it. Jamie said no. And that is powerful. Think about what he was really doing in that moment. He was saying, "My time is valuable. My dignity is valuable. And I am not going to let you take either of those things from me." That is a lesson we could all learn from. After Jamie left, the interview was obviously over. There was no coming back from that. Jennifer tried to continue the show like nothing happened, but you could tell she was shaken. Her energy was off for the rest of the taping. The audience was uncomfortable. The whole thing was a disaster. And here is the thing that makes this even more frustrating. This did not have to happen. If Jennifer had just approached the interview with humility and curiosity, it could have been amazing. Jamie is one of the most charismatic people in Hollywood. He has incredible stories. He is funny. He is warm. He is generous with his time. All Jennifer had to do was ask him about his life and get out of the way. But she could not do that. She needed to be the star. She needed to be the focus. And in trying to make herself look bigger, she made herself look smaller. Because now when people talk about this interview, they are not going to talk about how great Jennifer Hudson is. They're going to talk about how she disrespected Jamie Foxx. They are going to talk about how her ego got in the way of her talent. They are going to talk about how she had one of the biggest stars in the world on her show and she blew it. That is her legacy from this moment. Not the success of her show, not her achievements, but this the time she was so insecure that she drove Jamie Foxx off her stage. And you know what the saddest part is? Jennifer is talented. She is really talented. She has an incredible voice. She has real acting chops. She has a compelling story. But none of that matters if you cannot treat people with respect. None of that matters if you let your ego control you. This interview was a reminder that talent is not enough. You also have to be a good person. You have to be humble. You have to be willing to share the spotlight. And if you cannot do those things, eventually it is going to catch up with you. Jamie Foxx walked off that stage with his dignity intact. He did not compromise who he is. He did not let Jennifer make him feel small. He stood up for himself and he left. And you know what? He probably felt great about it. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to be able to say, I did the right thing and Jamie did. As for Jennifer, she has some reflecting to do. Because this is not just about one bad interview. This is about a pattern of behavior. This is about someone who is so focused on proving herself that she forgets what really matters. And if she does not change, this is not going to be the last time something like this happens. The truth is, we all have insecurities. We all have moments where we feel like we need to prove ourselves. But the difference between successful people and people who self-destruct is knowing when to check those insecurities at the door. Knowing when to put your ego aside and just be present with another person. Jennifer could not do that and it cost her. Now, some people watching this might think, well, it is just one interview. It is not that big of a deal. But it is a big deal because every interaction matters. Every moment where you choose to lift someone up or tear them down matters. Every time you let your ego make decisions for you, it matters. This interview was not just bad television. It was a reflection of character. And unfortunately for Jennifer, what it reflected was not flattering. Jamie Foxx did not need to be on that show. He is Jamie Foxx. He can go on any show he wants. He can sell out arenas. He can star in blockbuster movies. He does not need Jennifer Hudson's platform to be successful. He was there as a favor. He was there to support a fellow artist and she threw it back in his face. That is what makes this so painful to watch because Jamie came with an open heart. He came with good intentions and Jennifer took advantage of that. She used his kindness as an opportunity to make herself feel superior. And when he called her out on it, she could not handle it. Think about what could have been. Think about the conversation they could have had. They could have talked about growing up in the South. They could have talked about breaking into Hollywood as black artists. They could have talked about the power of music and film to change lives. They could have shared stories that inspired people. They could have made the audience laugh and cry and feel something real. Instead, we got this, a host so insecure that she could not celebrate someone else's success, a missed opportunity, a moment that will be remembered for all the wrong reasons. And the worst part, Jennifer probably thought she was being bold. She probably thought she was asking tough questions. She probably thought she was creating drama that would get people talking. And she was right about that last part. People are talking, but not in the way she hoped. They're talking about how she disrespected a legend. They're talking about how she let her ego ruin what could have been a great interview. They are talking about how Jamie Foxx had to walk off her show because she could not act right. That is not the kind of attention you want. That is not the kind of moment that builds a career. That is the kind of moment that defines you in the worst possible way. Jamie handled it perfectly. He gave her chances to course correct. He tried to be gracious, but when it became clear that she was not going to change, he made the decision to leave. And he did it with class. No yelling, no drama, just a simple statement of fact. This is not working. I am leaving. That takes courage. It takes self-respect. It takes knowing your worth. And Jamie has all of those things. As he walked off that stage, he was not angry. He was not bitter. He was just done. Done with being disrespected. Done with playing along with someone else's ego trip. Done with wasting his time on an interview that was never really about him in the first place. And you know what? Good for him, because we all need to learn when to walk away. We all need to learn when to say, this is not okay, and I'm not going to participate in it anymore. Jennifer sat there after he left trying to figure out what went wrong. But the answer was right in front of her. She went wrong. Her approach went wrong. Her ego went wrong. She had a chance to learn from one of the greats, to have a real conversation with someone who has lived an extraordinary life, and she squandered it because she needed to feel important. Here is the lesson. If you are lucky enough to be in the presence of greatness, do not try to compete with it. Learn from it. Celebrate it. Ask questions that help that person share their wisdom. Make the moment about them, not about you. Because when you make it about them, everyone wins. The audience gets to hear something valuable. The guest feels respected. And you, as the host, get to be the person who facilitated that magic. But when you make it about yourself, everyone loses. The audience is uncomfortable. The guest is disrespected and you come across as insecure and small. Jennifer made it about herself and now she has to live with the consequences. Jamie Foxx walked out of that studio with his head held high. He knew he did the right thing. He knew he stood up for himself. He knew he did not compromise his values for the sake of a television appearance. And that is worth more than any interview could ever be. This moment is going to follow Jennifer for a long time. Every time someone brings up her show, this is going to come up. Every time she interviews another big star, they're going to remember what happened with Jamie. Every time she tries to position herself as a serious interviewer, people are going to think about the time she was so focused on herself that she drove away one of the biggest names in entertainment. That is the price of ego. That is the cost of insecurity. That is what happens when you forget that it is not always about you. Jamie Foxx did not need to teach Jennifer Hudson a lesson. He did not need to put her in her place. He just needed to respect himself enough to walk away. And in doing that, he taught all of us something valuable. You do not have to tolerate disrespect. You do not have to sit there and smile while someone tries to diminish you. You do not have to play along with someone else's insecurity. You can stand up, you can say no, you can leave. And that is exactly what Jamie did. He left, and in leaving he showed more grace and class than Jennifer showed in the entire interview. This was supposed to be Jennifer's moment, her show, her platform, her chance to sit down with a legend and create something special. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when you let your ego write checks. Your talent cannot cash. Jamie Foxx is going to be fine. He was fine before this interview, and he is going to be fine after it. Because he is Jamie Foxx, he has nothing to prove. He has already proven everything. But Jennifer, she has some work to do. She has to figure out why she felt the need to compete with her guest instead of celebrate him. She has to figure out why she was so focused on her own relevance that she forgot to be respectful. She has to figure out how to be a better host, a better interviewer, and a better person. Because at the end of the day, that is what this is really about. Being a good person, treating people with respect, knowing when to step back and let someone else shine. Those are the things that matter. Those are the things that build a lasting career. Those are the things that Jamie Foxx has and Jennifer Hudson is still learning. Maybe she will learn from this. Maybe this will be a wake-up call. Maybe she will realize that she does not need to prove anything to anyone. She just needs to be herself and let that be enough. Or maybe she will not. Maybe she will keep making the same mistakes. Maybe she will keep letting her ego get in the way. Maybe she will keep pushing people away with her insecurity. Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. This interview, this moment, this decision by Jamie Foxx to stand up and walk away, it is going to be remembered. It is going to be talked about. It is going to be studied by anyone who wants to understand how to conduct themselves with dignity and grace in the face of disrespect. Jamie Foxx showed us all how it is done, and Jennifer Hudson showed us what not to do. That is the story. That is what happened. That is the moment when a legend refused to be disrespected and a host learned a very public, very painful lesson about the dangers of letting your ego run the show. Jamie walked off that stage knowing he made the right call, and history is going to remember him for it. Not as the guy who walked off Jennifer Hudson's show, but as the guy who knew his worth and was not afraid to stand up for it.